The Invaders. When fighting shadows destroys your own house. What if the scariest battle in the Twilight Zone wasn't against aliens at all, but against your own mind? This is The Invaders, Season 2, Episode 15. A story almost entirely without dialogue. Just one woman, one crumbling farmhouse, and two tiny strangers who land on her roof and turn her world into a war zone. By the end, the twist reveals the so-called invaders are us, humans, and the woman we feared was the giant. But the deeper twist is this. Every scream, every swing of her hatchet, every burn on her body came from a war she was fighting inside her own mind. It begins in silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of isolation. A farmhouse untouched by progress, stripped of every convenience. No electricity, no running water, no visitors. A woman surviving day by day, clinging to the little she has. And then, a sound. Something unfamiliar lands on her roof. It is small, almost laughably small. But fear doesn't measure in inches. Fear measures in meaning. She doesn't know what it is, so she decides it must be a threat. The moment she assigns that meaning, the war begins. Weapons are gathered, candles are clutched, stools are climbed. Every corner of her house becomes a battlefield. Two tiny figures appear in pressure suits. They carry small pistols, but the real damage comes from her belief. She sees marks on her skin and sobs, convinced she has been harmed. She terrifies herself before any real danger appears. This is projection in its purest form. The Course tells us, you will see what you expect. She expects invaders, and so she sees invaders. She strikes, she smashes, she burns. Her house becomes collateral damage. Windows shattered, roof chopped, walls ruined. In trying to protect her shelter, she destroys her shelter. This is the ego's cycle. It promises safety through attack, but leaves only exhaustion and ruin. Even the astronauts mirror her state. They came to explore a new world, but acted as invaders. She lived to defend her life, but became the destroyer. Two minds projecting fear until both collapse under it. Size turns out to mean nothing. The giant is terrified. The tiny carry deadly weapons. And then the joke is revealed. The invaders are us. US Air Force Space Probe Number 1. Humans are the pests. And the woman we thought was the monster was simply defending nothing. That's the hidden layer. What was she really protecting? A shack already falling apart. A body already frail. A life already stripped to the bone. The ego defends nothing and calls it everything. That is why it is always frantic, always armed, always terrified. To defend what is real needs no defense. To defend what is unreal can never succeed. So the story ends the way every ego story ends. She is hunched over, burned, exhausted. The enemy is gone, but her peace is still missing. Because the war was never against them, it was against herself. The shack is the separated self, frail, hungry, isolated. The probe is a neutral thought, unfamiliar, but harmless. The little men are projections of fear. The burns are guilt made visible. The destruction of the house is self-attack. And the exhaustion at the end is the ego's only prize. Even when you win, there is no satisfaction. No coffee, no relief, no peace. Just the same terror, because the terror was never outside. It was always inside. That's why the Course says, the secret of salvation is but this. You are doing this unto yourself. Stop the war you wage on yourself, and what you thought were enemies either disappear or lose all meaning. That is the real twist of the invaders. The little men were never the problem. The giant shadow was never real. The only invasion was fear, and the only salvation is to lay it down. These are the invaders, tiny men from a tiny place called Earth, who came with weapons and with fear, and found themselves staring up at giants of their own imagination. They sought to conquer, they sought to explore, but what they discovered instead was themselves. And the bill for their journey has been marked paid in full, filed under the universal ledger of illusions, and stamped forever in that peculiar outpost of the mind known only as the Twilight Zone.